individuals, maybe it's your first time here with us this evening, and we want to specifically welcome you to this event. We look forward to not just connecting with you tonight, but to continue to connect with you even after the workshops. So first, I'll go ahead and get the slides going here. I just want to introduce myself and a few speakers that you'll be hearing from this evening. Like I said, my name is Marsha Noel. I'm the host and the event organizer for our community workshops. Today, you'll also be hearing from our city manager, Jonathan Evans. You'll also be hearing from Dana Nottingham, our workshop facilitator and consultant. And then lastly, you'll also be hearing from Randy Sherman, our director of finance. All right, and if we can kind of keep the noise down a little bit, I understand there's some chitter chatter, but I just want to make sure that folks who are here trying to listen can hear me clearly. All right, so just a few housekeeping items before we get started. If it is your first time in this building, we do have restrooms. We have the women's restrooms to my left, the men's restroom to my right, and then we have a disabled restroom at the front near the entrance. Secondly, we have workshop materials. When you entered in, you should have signed in. In addition, there were several documents before you. Hopefully, you had a chance to pick some of them up. You should have received an agenda. We have site option illustrations. Basically, these images that you see on the board are in a brochure, so you can pick that up. We have the facts, our frequently asked questions from Workshop 3. So we do have answers to those questions. Feel free to grab that. We also have the rules of engagement, our guiding principles as to how we implement these workshops. The retail preference survey. Individuals who participated in our last workshop had an opportunity to share their input on what their retail preferences were. If you had not been able to complete that survey, if it's your first time, please feel free to grab that survey. You can complete it through the workshop and hand it back to the ladies who are at the registration table. Next, we have the grand opening. So we do have flyers for our grand opening of the Library and Emerging Community Center, which is coming up this Saturday, July 3rd, from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. It's going to be a wonderful event in light of everything that we're talking about when we talk about a Riviera Beach of the future and the Riviera Beach we want to enjoy today. I think that in light of all of that, this new facility that we've renovated and have prepared, it comes in a time in which we're looking to see more and more development and improvements in the community. And then lastly, we have a sign-in sheet. The sign-in sheet today does include information that we're hoping to retrieve from you, which is your phone number, mailing address, email address. Our goal is to stay communicated with you. So if you have not done so, please make sure to put your contact information on that sheet. We don't just want to send emails. You may even expect a phone call. So if you can, please provide us with your information so we can stay connected with ongoing activities after our workshops. And then thirdly, we have our video recordings. All workshops are recorded and saved online. So if you've missed anything, you can always go and look them up and watch anything that's already been done. So we have rivierbeach.org/reimagine workshops, our webpage that hosts the videos and other information pertaining to the workshop. You can also watch our videos on YouTube. This workshop is being recorded and broadcasted as we speak. And then lastly, this is your workshop. Like I've said at every workshop, this is a chance for us to hear from you on the topics that's going to be discussed this evening. So make yourself comfortable, ask questions, share your comments. Everything that you say is we take note of that because by the end of the day, it's the community input that's really going to make a difference in pushing forward. So with that being said, I will go ahead and move on to Before I move on into the presentation, there's one last item. So, like I said, we want to stay connected with everybody. But in doing that, there's so many different ways we can do that. We do have a mailing list for our Blue Heron newsletter that goes out weekly or bi-weekly through email. So if you want to get on that newsletter to get information about activities like this, the progress that we're making as a city, any programs and activities, you can sign up. So simply text the word "the Blue Heron" to 42828. Once you do that, you'll be asked for your email on the spot. When you submit your email, you're added to the list. It's that simple, and it only takes a second. So again, it's the word "the Blue Heron" to 42828. And we did have a couple of individuals sign up the last time, so hopefully you got our most recent newsletter. All right, so without further ado, I will go ahead and transition to our first speaker this evening, Mr. Jonathan Evans.
Good evening. Can everyone hear me? Walt, we good back there? All right. So, again, thank you for coming to these sessions. This is the culmination of the 4 workshops we've had to talk about Reimagine Riviera Beach. And this is the opportunity where you as the community can provide us your insight and feedback. And so we've had 3 very robust conversations. And I want to say conversations because there's been dialogue. If you think that you're going to sit in this space and not be engaged in a way that's thought-provoking or gets you thinking, this is the wrong workshop. We wanted to design this differently to get your input and feedback because it is so important for us to move the community forward with the community participating in the process. And so as we look to rebrand and reemerge as a community, all of us know that the facilities that we have in our community are woefully inadequate for the direction we want to move our city. The library that opens, the library and the Emerging Community Center opens on July 3rd. And the reason why that library facility is so important is that is the one thing when they surveyed folks on a lower socioeconomic ladder and those that are your highest income earners, the one disparity they found was access to books and literature. And as a community, we know the value of education and opportunities. And so the first facility that comes out of the ground is the library because of the importance that it has in this community. And so as we look to take subsequent steps, we have to address the existing conditions of our facilities. I have the pleasure of serving as the Vice President of the Palm Beach County City Managers Association. Next year will be my term as president. Every time we've had a meeting, other cities have showed their facilities. Our last meeting was at Boynton Beach. And the last 30 minutes of the presentation was a tour of their facilities. We can't provide that same tour to folks that visit our community and visit our facilities. And that's not okay. It has been said numerous times that we have talked about this, we have discussed this, we have workshopped this, but the reality, folks, is we haven't done this. But we will do this because we're committed to making sure that these pictures come to life. But they don't come to life unless the community wants them to come to life. And you believe that you're involved in the conversation and the discussion. I can tell you, dating back to when I was here in 2017, the city received $500,000 from the state of Florida to move forward with a library. They had 4 years to do it. What happened? Absolutely nothing. What happened? The state got $500,000 of the money we send to the state back. That's the consequences of inaction. That's the consequences of consistently talking about the same thing and not seeing them come to life. I said at the previous session, my mentor, who's Bill Horn, the outgoing city manager of Clearwater, has been there for 20 years and is retiring. He said, planning without implementation, Jonathan, is hallucination. These things will not be a hallucination for us. These will be a reality. Because our elected officials and staff and the community are going to support moving forward in a progressive manner. When you look at our existing facilities, a lot of them are not ADA compliant. We have issues with regards to water intrusion. We cannot put in some of the modern amenities that you see at other facilities. And they're not a representation of the men and women that live in this community. We can clearly do better. So the existing library that we have here, that you can see if you exit this room, when we talked about, hey, what would we need to do to renovate that facility in the interim, the city engineer said, Mr. Evans, we'd have to do all this work and do all these things, and it would cost us $1 million, and the contractor could not guarantee the work just because of the age of the facility and the condition. We cannot continue to put Band-Aids on major critical infrastructure in our community. I said last week that we had our pre-bid meeting for the water treatment plant. The solicitation, which is the mechanism that allows for us to engage the private sector to work with us for developing the scope, the plan, and ultimately delivering a new water treatment plant, is on the streets right now. We had 35 people in the room and 36 that were participating virtually. That's exciting. And the task that we gave them, the one specific task, 36 months, and the clock has started. 36 months. This usually is a 7-year process, and we have said you've got 36 months. Why? Because we have 5 to 7 years of useful life left at our existing plant that was built in 1958 for 14,000 residents, and we're well over 38,000 residents. That this board has been tasked with spending well over $13 million in the last 2 years to improve the conditions of the water quality. When I came here in 2019, the biggest clarifier, which is the mechanism that actually is utilized to disinfect the water, was down for 5 years. And the question was asked, well, why? I don't know. That's not an acceptable answer. I don't know is not an acceptable answer as we look to move forward. The library has about 3,000 square feet that is unoccupied and cannot be utilized. Drywall has been removed. The African American room that we had at our library had to be decommissioned because of significant water intrusion. That's not acceptable. For those of you that live in the community, those of you that are taxpayers, you don't want to send money to government and get substandard facilities. Unfortunately, that has become acceptable to some. Not anymore. Not anymore. That's the entranceway to the restrooms. I jokingly said to folks that if you ever lived in the 1960s and 1970s, I would assume you would become very familiar or actually get to take a step down memory lane if you were born in that era, if you went into our restrooms. Because that is the last time they saw TLC besides your regular routine maintenance. This facility, this is what a government facility looked like in 1970, 1980. Some of you have had the opportunity to recreate in this facility as a kid and have not seen no improvements except for the paint and the rules that are now on the wall. That's not acceptable. So how do we build the momentum and the synergy necessary to move these projects forward? We build it with you. The city of Riviera Beach most precious and most valuable commodity is the people that reside within the community. I will take our residents against any other residents in any other community, in any other city in the world 10 out of 10 times, because we're resilient, we're compassionate, we're caring, we're empathetic, and we want what's right. And so your city has to operate in the same way in which the residents operate. But you have to be involved in the process. How can you see economic development and redevelopment occur if it's not with the community's support and with the community's involvement? The city of Riviera Beach is a $189 million municipal corporation. Employs over 500 persons between the city, the CRA, and the utility district. If you have a small business and you're providing service and you live in this community, we need to be having conversations as how do we invest in your business and your opportunity to grow the wealth and you expanding your footprint in our community. On a conservative note, $13 million a year annually is spent by the consumers in this community outside of Riviera Beach. Outside. When we did the exercise with you all and we said, where do you go to get your hair done? Where do you go to get clothes? Where do you go to see the doctors? Invariably, most folks said outside of the city. So we're building somebody else's community and leaving ours behind. Well, that's got to change. That's got to change. One of the things the board is acutely aware of is the disparities as it relates to investments that the city has made. And so we're moving forward with the disparity study. We're going to be going back to the board and asking for additional resources to be able to conclude the disparity study, because in order to actually address some of the inequities in the system, we have to show that there is actually a defined problem. And there's a process that you have to go through effectively to do that. And we're in the steps, early stages of doing that. And that will provide us a lot more opportunities to invest in our local community. One of the challenges we have is perception. What do we do to address some of the criminal elements in our community? One of the biggest challenges that the chief and law enforcement will tell you is that we have to get more citizen participation, more citizen engagement. But that only happens when there's a genuine relationship with law enforcement to effectively address those challenges. Officers have to get out of their vehicles. Officers have to get to know the neighborhood. Officers really have to endear themselves to those that live in those neighborhoods to really see the change. But more importantly, we have to move aggressively towards owner-occupied dwellings. We have to get folks that buy a home and stay in this community. Most of the single-family residential housing stock in Riviera Beach is investments. 85% of those investments are owned by non-Riviera Beach residents. So you have absentee landlords. If you look, the paper just posted something yesterday that we actually moved forward with modifying our code compliance process and our nuisance abatement program to actually have some teeth, because the policies and procedures we had in the past were not up to snuff and didn't allow for us to address some of the issues that you've communicated in your neighborhoods. So we're going to aggressively look to improve public safety, but making sure that the community is involved every step of the way. So when we look at this, two sides of the coin, right? How do we make these things come to life? How do these facilities happen? I was explaining to somebody what this session would look like, and I told them it's like you going out to dinner at a fancy restaurant. And we say, you know what, go ahead and order anything and everything you want. And now we're getting ready to leave, and the conversation's been great, and now the bill comes. And then we got to see who's going to go ahead and pay the bill. Are we going to split the check? Is one person going to take it? Or is somebody going to go pull the car up? But we're going to have that conversation, and Mr. Sherman has been ready for this conversation to share with you what has to happen and what concessions have to be made to facilitate the growth and the redevelopment of our community with us involved. Because one of the things I want to tell folks is that invariably, when you're looking at these relationships with the development community, the city has to win 100% of the time. It has to be an arrangement that the city wins in the transaction. And we have to make sure that occurs. So the elected officials have said, you know, staff, we want you to look at this holistically. We want you to be innovative, creative. How do you look to bring these facilities to life? How do you get community involvement? How do you keep that community synergy? Because we want to see something happen. And if you all can't do it, then we're going to shuffle the deck and we'll find folks that can do it. Because we've talked about it so much as an agency. But we've got different faces in here. We've got different perspectives, and we've got people that are talking about these workshops. And so how do we build that momentum and that synergy to move it forward, to be able to inform these elected officials? These elected officials and elected officials that will come well after them are going to be making tough decisions, $100 million decisions. Those decisions get easier when the community is involved and the community speaks up on their perspective. We want your input, good, bad, or indifferent. But the elected officials have tasked us with the responsibility of engaging you in a way that is non-traditional because they want to get your input as we move forward. So as we look at the different steps in the process, we're probably at around the 40-yard line if you had to use a football analogy. This conversation that we will have will be wrapped up in a bow, and then we'll actually share the results with the board. And then when the board provides us their input, we're going to come back to the community and have subsequent conversations and discussions to get your input and feedback. It's not going to be a decision in a vacuum. It's not going to be a decision that Jonathan's going to say X. It's going to be a decision that we're all going to say X and maybe Y. But it's so important, and I cannot tell you how important it is, because you have the opportunity to make decisions that will leave a lasting imprint on the footprint of this community. These are generational projects. These are projects that are intended to outlive most of us in the room. So we have to capitalize on this opportunity, because our moment is now. You'll hear about the layered funding and all the different resources that the city has to be able to move in the direction, but the opportunity is now. And are we going to seize the opportunity, or are we going to be like others and say, well, you know, we had this workshop in 2021 and we're going to have it in 2025? I'm not doing this presentation again. I'm not. We got to move the needle forward, folks. I want to talk about other things that we can do and other initiatives while there's a crane over here or construction going on over here. It gets me so upset to see the cranes in West Palm and the cranes in Gardens. West Palm Beach doesn't even have a beach. We have so much to offer. I told you all at the early sessions, I've had 4 different groups of my family come and visit me. And unfortunately, all 4 of them have extended their stays because they absolutely love the slice of paradise we have here. And it is time for us to market those resources and utilize what we have and what we've always had to change the narrative of our community. So this is a breakdown of the sequence of events as to what's happening, and later on you'll hear about one important part, and that's going to be the financing element. But Mr. Nottingham is going to share with you a little bit about each of the design elements, option 1, option 2, option 3, what people's thoughts and sentiments were. And realize as we talk about some of the facilities, some of you had some, concern that certain facilities want to have certain amenities. As we go through the placemaking discussions, that's subsequent conversations that we're going to have with the community. We're not going to just say, ta-da, here it is. There's going to be multiple conversations and discussions, and there'll be multiple bites of the apple. So before I get an opportunity to introduce the next speaker that's been with us every Tuesday for the last 3 weeks and going on 4, and then I think we're going to bring him back to help us communicate this to the board. Are there any questions?
Is this better?
Yeah.
Is the library that's going to be open, is that a temporary?
So yes, the library that we're opening right now is going to be a temporary facility, with the understanding is that when we look to bring to life a new campus, that facility may be repurposed for a community center or allow for the expansion of the youth empowerment program.
Where are we planning to put the new library?
That's part of the discussions that we're having with the community. That's part of these conversations as to where do these facilities look? Is it its own standalone facility? Is it incorporated in the actual City Hall campus? When they previously had the discussion on this, it was an opportunity where they looked to blend Wells Recreation and the library to where maybe you have a floor that's the library and then the 2 bottom floors may be recreational elements. But there will be a library component that will be in the redesign of whatever facility iteration we get to in the final stages.
Okay, you presented to council the fire department and Wells last Wednesday for the approval to be moved over here, over in this area. And then last Tuesday, I was asking you all, what are you going to do with Wells? Because Wells is a voting place.
The precincts, that will be something that we will work with the supervisor of election. If this is under construction, if we are constructing on this site, then probably what would happen is the location will be at City Hall. We will make sure that persons are not displaced as a result of what construction happens. So if there's a voting precinct that is actually at Wells and this site is under construction and can't be utilized, then probably what will happen is we would move it to City Hall.
So basically, is the fire department that you're putting over here, is this temporary?
This is temporary, yes. Because that particular facility, and you can certainly speak with the chief, is at the end of its useful life, has significant issues with regards to water intrusion. And actually, one of the reasons that we demoed the previous library, or the previous Fire Station 88, was the same issues that we're seeing over at Fire Station 87. So the intent is to have a temporary facility to move Fire Station 87 in the interim, which all the components except for the site work can be utilized in other applications. So we can move the trailer to another location as we move facilities to be able to accommodate the reconstruction of projects in the community. So it has more than one use.
Okay, but the fire department actually was in some of this stuff right here. But it's already authorized to be done.
That's an interim facility. That's not the final construction of the facility.
When you consider redeveloping, would you please take in consideration of redeveloping not just, and I'm not trying to be, bashful, because as I saw, all of this is Riviera. Can we start redeveloping on the west end of town as well? Because the way you're going to get the community involved on both sides is not leave the west side out. They feel left out, and like I said before, I've been campaigning for over 30 years. The people are sick and tired and sick. Whether it's this council, the previous council, it's no time for pointing fingers, but we don't want to have to take our money and continue to go outside the city of Riviera Beach, because whether anybody in here know it or not, city of Riviera Beach is a rich city. And that's why people are coming back and investing and taking property and rebuilding and revitalizing, because this is a rich city. But we're not working together as a team. It's Singer Island or the Riviera Beach. And last I checked, Riviera Beach and Singer Island is one city. And if we start contemplating on that, we probably can get along better. You know, it's not a one-man show. It's not a 5 vote. It's the taxpayers' vote. And when you're saying temporary, what kind of money is going to cost the taxpayers to relocate just temporarily? We need some permanent. You know what I'm saying? We don't need no more warehouses. And if you would take in consideration, my prayers go out to Miami, but if you take in consideration, we don't need a whole lot of more $200,000 high-rise sitting on the water, and then when the sea level comes, what happened 40 years that wasn't inspected and followed up on? Let's take things into consideration for all the people in the city of Riviera Beach, not just for the ones who have money.
Yeah, so to that point, I think it's important to also note that, you know, when we're talking about these are facilities that we've either acquired or under the span and control of the city. We certainly want to see as much opportunity throughout the community equally distributed, and I think when we look at the new library, the Emerging Community Center, which in totality is about a $4 million investment, and then you have the fire station that's going to be on the corner of Blue Heron and Congress, that's about another $15 million investment. The library, when it opens, will actually be the first facility in well over 30 years that we've been able to bring it to life. So we are doing things that are intentional. We are looking at the opportunities to have everyone coalesce behind one another, because you're absolutely right. In order to have these things happen, and economic development and redevelopment and stable neighborhoods, is we've got to all work together. We have to all work together. And we all have to be under the same mindset that it is one Riviera Beach. And when I was here in 17, I said one city, one vision. We have to operate in that mindset. And I can tell you that I've had people that I know that are well astute that did not know that Singer Island was Riviera Beach until I told them that. So we have to do things with intention behind it, and we have to make sure that we work together cohesively to see our community move forward. Any other questions?
Good evening. Question for you. Is there any intentions to build hotels on this side besides the Travel Lodge? You know, and the reason why I'm saying that is...
I'll repeat his question.
Okay. And the reason being is we have 3 options, which all 3 options are nice. The one thing that I've noticed in all 3 options is there's a mixed use area, and then in one option, which I believe is option B, has a retail commercial right in front of the park area. But there's nothing showing like a hotel, and you were speaking on the city of Boynton Beach. Darien Beach as well, right on Atlantic Avenue, built a brand new Marriott hotel right there. So I'm just saying to where even on this side, where these different areas are, maybe that's something we could look at. It's just me personally, I would love to get a Starbucks in Riviera Beach. I'm tired of driving to North Lake. If we could get a Starbucks in there some kind of way, I would love it. Thank you.
Yep. No, and certainly Mr. Nottingham has extensive experience in regards to those particular decisions and how those corporate entities make those decisions. Hey, we would take any reasonable, responsible developer that wants to do right by the city to redevelop in our community. But when they do look at some per capita personal income and they do their circles, they have to have a certain target and a certain threshold that's met for their corporate entity to say, hey, conceivably we're going to look to do that. But one of the things that we are looking as we look to redevelop our community, how can we create storefronts and have business incubator? Because my vision is hopefully that, and I know we have, folks in this community that can brew coffee better than Starbucks that's locally owned. And so how do we create that opportunity to give them a step up? And so that we're going to try to do that through some of the redevelopment. But Mr. Nottingham will speak on the specificity on what needs to occur in order to see those hotel chains look to redevelopment in our community, especially when we're talking as far west here or even further. Question? Yes.
Mr. Manager, let me begin by saying that I was here to the first meeting, and I saw all these beautiful pictures and et cetera, and it showed some great promises. But I was on my way home, I was saying to my friend who was going home, I said, that look good, but where is he going to put all of these buildings? Because, and I said, I don't blame the city manager. I said, they're going home from the first meeting. I said, because the past council gave away all of our prime land to developers. So where's he going to put these things? Got a good vision, but now he got to find some land to put them on. Where's he going to do that? That was going home from my first, from the first meeting. And I didn't get to the second meeting, now the third meeting. But as I was sitting home in my office, I was turning on my television to go to my basketball game. Then I came across this. I said, well, let me look at this until my game come on. And then by that time, you was giving a presentation. And you said, I got a vision. That's got my attention, a vision. Now, let me see what his vision is like. You began to say that the city don't give away its prime land. No city. But this city done not that. Now, you got to come back, and I said, I don't blame the city manager. I said that definitely to Jerome, and I was going home. I said, I don't blame it. I blame past council, and this council gave me some land that it shouldn't have gave away. I says, now he got to rob Peter to pay Paul. Anytime you start renovating and tearing down, there are going to be some inconveniences. Accept the fact there are going to be some inconveniences. Now, when he says that his vision is to tear down City Hall and move it over here, wherever, and move this on a location, he got to tear that down. I was here, maybe y'all are tired of hearing me saying this, but I say because the city been good to me. I worked for the city for 30 years, started here in 1969. I was here when the City Hall was down on Avenue E. And when they got the money to build that building, the state didn't tell them what kind of material to use. They said you got to build it, use City Hall. They built City Hall, the library, and the police department. And when they got that material, Newbold, see, a lot of people don't know the history of this city. Newbold was the building inspector. He said, don't use those blocks. They're bad blocks. They used them anyway. At that time, we called those blocks honeycomb blocks. Maybe some people don't know what we're talking about, but something like a beehive. You could never keep the water out of those blocks. Working in public works and supervising public works and the police department, the library, City Hall, we stripped the walls down with drywall and put new drywall there and had this outside coated. It won't last for so long. You could spray them building, them blocks out there, kind of seal them to keep the water from coming in. Good for a little while, but it was always come back. You would never stop the mold from getting in those buildings. Believe it or not. Now, when he was talking about, the city manager was talking about some of the things he was going to do about moving the water department over to public works, which y'all don't know. See, that land where public works was at, it was a lumber yard. That's what it was. It was a barn. We moved from a barn on 9th Street. That's where public works used to be, on 9th Street. That was a barn. We moved from one barn to another barn. Seriously. And the builder asked us that, why don't y'all get your council to tear this down and build a concrete building and it'll be better. They wouldn't do it. We asked them to buy that land right next to the south of Public Works. They wouldn't do it. He said, well, won't you buy the land right there between Public Works and Blue Hero? They say that belongs to the railroad, and they wouldn't sell. So this city, and I remember him saying in that last council, looking at television, that this city has gone backwards. I remember when this city had 5 major banks in it. I know that. They had one on Silver Beach. Had one right there in Silver Beach in our US 1, Blue Hero US 1. They had a bank right there on where the BBT Bank at. They had a bank, maybe y'all don't know it, they had a bank on a major bank on Grodin Road, and they had one on Sanger Island. 5 major banks. Now we ain't got but 2. That's going backwards. I remember when this city had one of the best men's clothing store that you could find in this county, called Forest Men's Store. Y'all don't remember that? I know. Right there next to BBT Bank. It was a Forest Men's Store. We had 3 major restaurants. We had Captain Alex. Y'all don't know about Captain Alex. It was a major restaurant. I was here then. And they had the restaurant up there where where the store used to be at, called Morrison Grocery restaurant. And they had this restaurant down there by the bridge. Major restaurant. They all gone. They had we had everything, but it's gone. They gave it away. So now what you gonna do? You got to come back and try to get what you gave away, and now try to go from there. Otherwise, like trying to stop a snowball coming down the mountain before you could dissolve it, you got to stop it. So the city of Riviera Beach right now don't have a doctor's office in it. That's a shame. Where could you go to a doctor's office in Riviera Beach? You don't have in Riviera Beach a convalescent center for the old folks. A city like this. That's a shame. Now, I agree with what he said. We got to go back, and somebody got to give up some stuff to accomplish what you need to make this city a productive city. If this city would have kept, and I don't blame him because he wasn't here, if this city would have kept its water, would have kept its refuse department, I helped ran the refuse department. Goo-hoos of money. The refuse department can't lose money. Waste management used to hire us to work for them. At the time that we was doing the recycling, we had the best recycling in this state, this city here. I didn't say it was the only recycling place in the state, but it was the only city in the state of Florida had its own recycling business. Goo-hoos of money. Nobody can tell me that recycling don't make money, because we was every city around here was working for us. Every city was bringing their yard waste to us. And we were grinding that yard waste and turning around selling it back to the people. We had a major receiver was the sugar mills out on the Glades. They bought material from us. Do you know now that at the time they got rid of the recycling place, we was in the point of negotiating with Martin County to come and help ground this material. Short-sighted. They gave it to waste management because they saw the money that it was making. And the citizen didn't say a word. If we'd have kept our recycling, kept our refuse, kept control of our marina, kept control of our ocean mall, and keep our water, this would have been the richest city in this county. They gave it all away. Now what he's going to work with? Scrap. He got to rearrange everything to get the city going again. When you're right, you're right. I'm going to say, when I think you're wrong, I say you're wrong. That's me. Not that I have anything against you, but you all don't know that this city had, some of y'all know, that this city had a bowling alley. It had 2 drive-in theaters. Do y'all know that? This city had 2 drive-in theaters. Now they ain't got nothing. And we're going to talk about now how we going to do this. Who cares? Get it done. Because I don't want to live here forever and see this city go nowhere. Somebody asked, I think one gentleman asked about a motel. Do y'all know that car lot out there on the right side, just before you get to Blue Heron, before you get to the I-95? Do y'all know that's supposed to have been a major motel going there? That was supposed to have been a major motel going there with restaurants. They argued and fussed along with the county till the people left. I'm telling you what I know. I was here. That was supposed to have been a major motel going right down that corner. Council, change council, they don't like that council, don't like that person, instead of going forward what they started and lost it. All that land out there was prime land. It's gone. So when I sat home and looked at that, I was in my house, in my office. My wife, she wasn't living in my office. I said, this guy got a good idea. But now, where is he going to put the land? He pointed out, tear down the old city hall, put it way over here or wherever. We got land. Do y'all remember where on Avenue E, that vacant land there? That used to be the city hall. City owned that land. Now, why would we, no offense to nobody, when you bought that old building right there on where there used to be the bank on Blue Heron and Old Dixie, that old used to be a bank there, I said, that's the dumbest thing I could ever hear. I'm serious. That's me. They never should have bought it. That's a waste of money. So what you gonna do with it? Only thing you do with it is renovate it and put one office there. That's all. So, ladies and gentlemen, we need to get behind him in his vision. I'm not saying you got to agree with everything he said, everything you do. But when he right, he right. He right. This city is going down. Let me say to the council and the mayor, go down Military Trail. There's some vacant land there. Anybody know about League of Cities? Council ought to know about League of Cities. National, state League of Cities. Go to these League of Cities and find some of these developers and bring them here. That's what you're supposed to do. Bring them here and look at out there on Military Trail. You got a major baseball game, right? 2 miles away. You got one of them, this water rapid, national known. Bring somebody and show them these things, and let them see that the city do have some potentials. But we got to go out and promote the city and follow the vision. We don't need no more. We don't need no more gas station. I look on here about gas station. We don't need no more gas station. From Military Trail to Sanger Island, we got about 13 gas stations. We don't need no more. We don't need no more apartments in this city. All of them ran down already. Make them build up these what they got. We don't need no more. We don't need no more of these sober houses in Riviera Beach. We don't need no more. Get behind the man's vision. Whether you like him or not, he got a vision. You better follow it if you want to see the city going anywhere.
So I did want to, there's a lot to unpack there, but the reason that I allowed for that input is paramount to why we're here today and why we've been doing this workshop. The frustration that the community that we all love has less for us than previous generations have had. That's not okay. That's not okay. Our responsibility, right? Our responsibility is to provide and till the soil so the next generation can plant and flourish, not to reap the crop and never go back and replenish what was there. Our sense of community, a lot of the things that we enjoyed. Could you imagine, just indulge me for a moment, if we had one of those drive-in theaters during the pandemic, we would have been the place to be in the county, let alone probably all Southeast Florida. So there's things that we have to think differently. We have to look at things differently, but we have to continue to move forward. And we have to find that delicate balance as to how do we make this happen? How do we pay for it? But how do we get the value out of it? How do we make sure that people that come to our community to invest in our community are not just going to take the windfall of profits and the resources and utilize it in Nantucket? We want folks that are genuinely committed to the vision, to the ideologies that Riviera Beach first and Riviera Beach always. And if they can subscribe to that, we can do business. If they can't, then maybe this community is not suited for you to make that investment. But if you're willing to hear and listen and implement, we can have those discussions. And so what I'm going to do is transition to our next speaker, Mr. Dana Nottingham. Mr. Nottingham has a wealth of experience, expertise, both in the private and the public sector, has worked for the Miami Development Authority, has also worked for the Walt Disney Corporation, so has a good balance and knows our community, and has been one of the principal architects as we have looked to brand this workshop series and make it profoundly different and get some input from you all so we can move the needle forward. So without further ado, Mr. Dana Nottingham.
Thank you. Oops. Mic on. Hello, can you hear me? Thank you. Here it is. It's Tuesday night. I'm back again, Riviera Beach, just like Monday Night Football. I look forward to it all week. The last time we were together, first, how many of you attended the last workshop? Okay, great. How many of you have been to more than 2 workshops? Great. Because I think we started with 20 or 30, you know, we have 50 or 60 people in the room. So the momentum is growing. The last time I was before you, I closed talking about consciousness. You remember that quote I was talking about Albert Einstein? You can't solve a problem with the same consciousness that created it, okay? And I've been thinking about that all week, and I've been thinking about the seriousness of why we come together here, because there is a new consciousness, and that consciousness is that the future is now. Let me say that again. The future is right now. Things are moving so fast in this world that we live in that if you stay still, you're actually moving backwards, okay? And this is not my quote, but it's a great quote. The past has no reality, okay? What happened in the past, that's a past now. That was a now that was lived before. Right now, we live in the present. But the past has lessons and it has consequences. We could look at our personal life, we can look at city building. The past has lessons and consequences, but we have to build upon that. And that's why we're here tonight. In terms of the future, in your personal life and in city building, you don't discover your future. Remember people, you know, find yourself, discover. Now, in terms of your future, you got to create your future. And to do that, you had to meet destiny halfway. And that's why we're here. We're taking a big step to mobilize our commitment in order to meet destiny halfway. Now, we always talk about vision, but vision alone is not enough. I think my favorite quote is, vision will get you to the 50-yard line, but execution will get you in the end zone. But listen to me carefully. Action is not enough. Okay? I've been around a lot of people, they're doers. And I've been around a lot of people that just want to take action to show that they're doing something. That ain't enough. Your action has to be thoughtful. And that's why we're here. So when we're reimagining Riviera Beach, I was getting ready to say Virginia Beach, and I don't even know why. When we're reimagining Riviera Beach, I was just playing with you that time, okay. We are redefining and reimagining what thoughtful action means, okay? Vision, the most important vision, is the vision of people working together differently to achieve outcomes different from the past. That's why we're here. We don't want the outcomes from the past. We want the future outcomes because what? The future is now. So when I left this week, I went back, and the seriousness of what's going on here really, really came down on me. Because when you think about it, what we're talking about tonight is repositioning this city for the next 50 plus years, okay? Because even though we talk in terms, we're coming here and the city has a big project, it's a big project. But when you peel the onion back and you look at it, there are 9 different sub-projects that make up this endeavor, okay? There are 9 different sub-projects that have to be conceived, that have to be planned, that have to be financed. Each one has their own schedule. They have their own team of professionals. And you take the number of people on one of those and multiply it by 9, you could have 50 or 100 people directly involved in this kind of endeavor. And you don't move the needle in terms of making progress with small steps. So I applaud the city on this because this is a bold move. And it's a bold move in things that matter. We talked about the city hall. Well, we're talking about governance. Governance matter. Municipal services, the quality of those services, they matter. We've been talking about a wellness center. Wellness matters. What matters more than wellness? If you ain't here, you can complain, but if you ain't here, you can't even complain, okay? So there's a concept bubbling up of a wellness center, okay? What says more about a community than a library, okay? The library is intergenerational, and it's the platform, really, for educating our youth, and not just our youth, lifelong learning. Okay? What could be more important than public safety? Okay? We had that discussion last week, you know? Police and fire, that's absolutely important. But at the same time, people are dropping from cancer, stroke, and diabetes. Let's be real. Okay? So the Wellness Center is a part of this new platform that we're engineering. Okay? And we're talking about a water plant. Okay? What's more basic to wellness than water, exercise, and food? So we're getting back to basics so we can set a new platform and we can launch our rocket ship from here because the future is now. Now, my role in this endeavor has really to be, as I said before, all ears. I'll throw this up. of Mickey Mouse, all ears. My role is to listen very carefully, okay? Try to facilitate the flow of information, do whatever I can do to help get people on the same page. That's my role. And in that role, you'll find that every night that we've been here, we have documented your questions, we've produced a package of your questions, and we presented the best answers we could present at the time, given the information available. We've done that for three workshops. If you want to look at that in more detail, you can go online. There are all kinds of means for you to get that information. And surely tonight, if there are different questions, we're going to document that. So why are we doing that? We're doing that because the City Council established as a priority that for us to execute this bold move, we all have to be on the same page so that we can do two things: lock in and move out. And as I said, I don't know which workshop, we don't want to do a Michael Jackson and the moonwalk, okay? One step forward, I'm not going to do my move, but I did the last time. One step forward, two steps backwards. No, we're through with the Michael Jackson move. So tonight, what I'm going to do, for those of you who haven't been here, I am going through all the options again. I'm going to do it sort of fast. At the desk, there was a brochure. The brochure lays out each one of the options that we're talking about. Option A, option B, and option C. In our workshop series, workshop number 1 was introductory. Workshop number 2, we went through the 3 options in detail in smaller groups. In those smaller groups, we got some feedback from the groups in terms of what was their preference in terms of an option. If they agreed with the option, did they have any exceptions? Like, I agree that this is my favorite option, but I have a few footnotes. My favorite condition on these. And then third, were there any key questions? Okay, preference, exceptions, and questions. Okay, so as I go through the options, I'm not going to go through all the questions, but what I'm going to do, I'm just going to point out some of the highlights from each one of the options. And then after we do that, I'm going to share a little bit about the retail preference survey that we did in workshop number 3, that we actually broke down into small groups, and together we went through a survey which gave us a little more documentation on where people are shopping in Riviera Beach or outside of Riviera Beach, and even outside where they're shopping. So this is valuable information, especially there's a section in that survey that talks about what's not here that you want to see here, okay? So business people out in the world need to hear that this is a great place. It's a diamond in the rough, call it whatever you want, and there's business to do here, okay? And not just outsiders coming in doing business, but to inform those that are here, the big opportunities that we have. So I'm going to go through pretty fast. We always start with the opportunity coin. There are 2 sides of an opportunity. There's a challenge, and then there's an opportunity. Sometimes people say, oh, that's a challenge. So yeah, it's a challenge, but it's an opportunity. And this big project that has 9 sub-projects, the goal is to come up with a comprehensive investment and revitalization strategy. Now, what does that mean? That means that we have all our ducks in a row. We know what we want to do, what we're going to lock into. We're going to quantify how long it's going to take, how much it's going to cost, what is the quality of the work, the performance that's required. And we're going to put that all on paper so that Randy Sherman, who is here tonight, your Director of Finance, can take all of that and craft a financing schedule, a financing strategy for this mega project that has 9 sub-projects. And in workshop 2 and 3, we talked a little bit about partnerships and strategy, and that there were layers to this, and that the different layers are where the potential for gaps are. Here, the strategy, there you go. The red on the outside is the partnership strategy. And remember, we talked about a 4-cylinder car, that public-private partnerships was more complicated than public and private. That was public-private, public-public, institutional, and community partnerships. All of them are essential, just like a 4-cylinder car. R1, R2, R3, we talked about redevelopment strategy. There were 3 things that had to happen at the same time. Reinforce, build on your strengths, revitalize, maximize untapped potential, and restructure. Restructure meaning fix what's broken. That's R1, R2, R3. And then the green, which is money green, is the execution. For each of those 9 sub-projects, they're going to go through a process, and then you're going to have to go through procurement. You're going to have to buy the services you need to design and build it. Design construction, you do that next. You're going to have to finance it. There are going to be many sources for the uses of money for each of the 9 sub-projects. It's a complicated thing. And then you got to operate it. And then when you talk about the useful life of a real estate asset, you just can't focus on the cost of it. You got to focus on how much it costs and how much it costs to operate it, how much it costs to build, how much it costs to operate. That's a very complicated thing. And as the manager said, if this is a football field, we're on the 40-yard line. And we're actually on the 40-yard line to get to the point where we have a comprehensive plan. Then we kick off. We kick off the design, the construction, and the financing. Are there any questions? Okay. Let's go through the options. Option A. This is east, this is west, that's Blue Heron. This is north, this is south, that's President Obama. These little lines here that look like targets, that's just for a frame of reference. That's the existing city hall, that's the existing library. So the fire station, the police station up here. This right here is a proposed parking garage that will be connected to a potential train station here along this railroad right-of-way. Now, is everybody oriented on that? Does anybody have a question about that? Okay. This is option A. And in option A, everything in this quadrant here, and let's call this the north parcel, okay? The police station, the fire station, the city hall, the library, and the water plant, it all gets demolished. It gets demolished. And we have a little clapping. On the opposite side of the street, the building that we're in, it gets demolished. Okay. So now we got a clean pad of land, all right? Now, in this particular scheme, which is option A, the blue stands for private mixed-use development. And I've heard a lot of comments tonight about apartments and retail and all that kind of stuff. So mixed use, broadly defined, could also include hotel as well, okay? So that is the blue on that side of the street. Now, on the other side of the street, these are the new public uses that are being proposed. So green is public, blue is private. Number 10 is new city hall. See that star? New city hall and administration offices. Number 7 is new library. Down at the bottom, we have police, fire, and emergency operations at the bottom of the south parcel. And then in the middle, we have a new park. And I'm saying park, but what I'm really saying is it's green space. Okay, it's not necessarily the athletic fields and whatever when you use the word park for some recreational park, okay? It's greenways and trails and all that, a park. Any questions about that? Now, if I were to take this diagram and just do a three-dimensional diagram, that's what it would look like. The gold star is the city hall. The blue is the private mixed-use development. The library is here, public safety is here, and the park, green space, is here. This is option A, okay? Now, we had 30 people in workshop number 2, and we broke it into 3 different groups, and we took account of what your preference would be. On this option, there were 9 people who preferred this option. There were 9 people who preferred this option out of 31, okay? And then now, let me reiterate, that is just a 30-person sample, okay? And we're getting more input from the community, and we'll share with you the results of that later. This is just a little snapshot. Okay, let's go to option B. In this one, the same thing, the north parcel, all of that gets demolished. And in this scheme, the city hall is here, the administration building is here, the new city hall and administration, and the new library is here. On the opposite side of the street, the south parcel, the public safety complex is in the same location, the park is in the same location, and this is showing sort of low-scale commercial store frontage along Blue Heron, okay? Any questions about this one? Now, if we do a 3-dimensional diagram, it would look like this. Here's the city hall, here's administration, here's the library, here's public safety, fire, police, emergency operations, here's the park, and here is the low-rise commercial. Okay, now in the groups, in that sample of 30 people, no one selected this option. It just turns out 30 independent people, nobody selected this option, okay? So let's move forward. Now, option C. Now, option C has a little different twist to it because you'll note there's no star up there, which means that the city hall would be located somewhere else, and the library would be located somewhere else. We got another clap. Okay. So in this option, here we go. All of this is demolished, and the blue that you see, there you go. There you go. There you go. The blue that you see is private mixed-use development. Okay? Now, the significance of that is that it's private mixed-use development next to a garage and a train station, right? So there's the potential there for mixed-use development and the potential to maybe have a little bit of higher density development to be determined, okay? But the point is, all of this blue, this is former city land generating no taxes that's now generating taxes. I think that's the most important, that's a very important point. You sell land and you sell views, okay? Now, on the other side of the road in the south parcel, the public safety building in this scheme is the same as A and B, and this is a wellness center, a proposed wellness center to be defined. And so we can talk about more about that later, but the intent of a wellness center is just to think about holistic fitness, nutrition, mind and body, okay? A place that you would go with your family to work out, eat some healthy food, have a picnic out in the park. There would be education, counseling services, that kind of thing under one roof. Okay, so that would be a wellness concept. Now, a three-dimensional diagram again, and you see the wellness center, which would have a relationship with the park. The public safety building would be tucked away, and you would have the private mixed-use development here. Okay, now, on this scheme, 21 people said that this was their favorite. With the footnote, okay, and the footnote was not by all, but by most, that they loved the scheme, but they wanted the fire station and the police station fronting Blue Heron, and this moved back, okay? Now, you look in the documentation, there are other questions and everything, but basically, those are the major things that came up to be determined, okay? Are there any questions? Yes. What's the what?
Wells recreation for voting places.
No. The wells, we've addressed that. That will be replaced with another voting place in this area for the people that live in the area. I mean, that's that.
It was questioned in this option, okay?
Excuse me?
It was questioned.
Absolutely, and look at the documentation that's in there. Well, it will be in there in the final report, okay? And if it's not, it's an oversight by me, and I'll take responsibility for it, okay? I take responsibility for it. It's going to be in the final report. Any questions about this? Okay. Now, in this scheme, the City Hall is located to Broadway between 22nd, 23rd Street, and Avenue E. This looks like it's built and finished, but it's not. This is just a conceptual rendering to give you some idea of, the scale of it, the closeness to the water, the height of it, the views to the water. We had Scott Evans here from the CRA last week that gave a presentation on a vision for Avenue E. And this fit right in there in terms of a mix of uses, neighborhood scale uses, residential, little retail. The bottom of this has retail as well. So this is option C. And again, there were, 21 people that in that small focus group, that's where their head was. Okay. Now, in terms of, in workshop number 3, we went through the retail survey in terms of shopping. And we still are looking at that in detail, but I want to report to you some of the highlights from it. Now, if you can remember, one of the questions was, it took 9 uses, and we asked the question, where do you shop or get these services? Within Riviera Beach or outside of Riviera Beach? And we got some good information about where people were shopping in North Palm Beach, West Palm Beach, Lake Park, Palm Beach Gardens, and Riviera Beach. Now, just as an overview, of these 9 uses, groceries, drugstore, bank, doctors, urgent care, barber and salon, hardware, gas, and car repair, there were about 176 responses that were put down. And
Can you just repeat those,
okay,
please?
groceries, drugstore, bank, doctors, urgent care, barber, salon, hardware, gas, and car repair. Okay? The bottom line on this is 20% of where people shop was in Riviera Beach. Out of 176, 20% was in Riviera Beach. So that's interesting. Then there's a question there that said, what's not here that you would like to see here? And that's a really good question. And if some business people are looking at this video, hey, this is what the community wants, okay? They got money in their pocket, and these are the kind of things that they want. Under entertainment, I saw more than one, places for teens. I saw bowling center, skate park. I saw a lot, indoor fun center, or restaurant and games, I guess the Dave and Buster's kind of thing. Miniature golf, and believe it or not, movies was on there. I thought people were staying at home streaming now, but I saw movies a lot, okay. In terms of restaurants, really, this community is hungry for restaurants, really, I mean, loud and clear. Seafood, family style, soul food, sit-down vegan came up a couple of times. Diverse, ethnic restaurants, and entertainment, jazz. When music and food came up, I'm not going to say jazz, just music and food came up, that people had to drive long distances to get that kind of experience unless they were going to a concert. Okay? And that's just an update. We're going to dig into the numbers and crunch them again and have a report and get that out to you. So, oops, I don't even know what that is. So we'll stop. I'm going to stop there and introduce Randy Sherman. And the thing I want you to keep in mind, this big project with these 9 sub-projects, and it's not just the money that's needed, it's the controls that's needed so that we can manage and yield predictable results, that just making that work in terms of the uses of money and the sources of money and the strategy to deliver the money, when it's needed, falls in Mr. Sherman's camp, and he's going to give you an overview of his thoughts on the financing strategy for this bold endeavor. Randy Sherman.
All right, well, thank you for sticking in here tonight, because this is a group that, as Mr. Evans said, we are going to get this done. I mean, let's be real. Let's start out and really be real about this. We have been living in our mother's basement for about 20 years, okay? It's time to get out of our basement. It's free. We don't pay a lot, but it's dirty, it stinks, it leaks, you got no internet service, and you never want to bring a date back to these facilities, right? It is time, to get up and move on. So my role here is kind of, bring a little reality to this situation. These pictures are nice. Some of them are sexy looking, but we're going to get down and dirty tonight, so we can talk a little bit about the finances. As you know, as I think it's Reverend Burris, is that his name? I don't know if he's still here or not. Talked about the vision that the city manager has. But that's not really, where things happen. As you know, you guys in South Florida had one of the greatest football coaches ever, Don Shula, right? But who got the work done? I will take Mercury Morris and Zonka, Larry Zonka, to the end, right? Those are the guys that did the work and got the thing over the finish line. And that's what we're going to start talking about here tonight. So what I want to do is tell you that, do we have a financing plan? And the answer to that is nope, we don't. Because it's not as simple as you'd like, some folks would like to think it is. These things are sort of like a river, right? The water is going to flow where the water is going to flow. And what we're going to do is just follow it to the end till we get to where we want to be. So what I put together here, this is how you put these projects together. It is piece by piece, and depending on what you're talking about, as Mr. Nottingham said, there's 9 different projects. Some revenues are allowed to be used for certain things. Some revenues are not to be allowed for certain things. But what we have here are a bunch of different revenue sources. And as you start to go through them, I don't know if anybody wants to start adding these up as I start going through them, because I'll tell you, I haven't added them up. But by the time I was done, I was like, wow, this is really doable. And I remember, when I first got to the city 9 years ago, I had a council person actually say to me, well, I know what West Palm Beach did, because I worked for West Palm Beach before I came here. And said, that's West Palm Beach. We're not West Palm Beach, and we really don't deserve what West Palm Beach has. That's not, and I was like, oh, you're wrong. Because I will tell you, when I was in West Palm Beach, I used to joke with my staff that we should annex Riviera Beach. Because as the manager pointed out, West Palm Beach doesn't have a beach. This community has far more going for it than West Palm Beach really does. West Palm Beach is the center, but you know what? I'll take Midtown outside of Atlanta than I will take downtown Atlanta. Midtown, Buckhead, those, and think about it, that's really what Riviera Beach is. You're on the outskirts, but you've got a lot of things to offer here. So I'm going to walk through these fairly quick. And then I'm going to walk through some real life scenarios about how we've put together projects in the past. But again, it's going to be a matter of, as projects come up, just like we did with the temporary fire station and we did with the temporary library and youth empowerment center, as things come up, we start putting the pieces together. So the first thing we talk about, there's always cash on hand, right? The city has a disaster fund. It has $8.3 million sitting in it. We put about $800,000 in it every year. So if you take that out over 20 years, that's $16 million that you have. Now, can I use disaster fund money for everything? No, but I can use disaster fund money to pay for an EOC. I can use disaster fund money to harden buildings, okay? So you have that type of thing, that's out there. Moving across the top, we talk about grants. This year, as part of the Florida state budget, city was awarded $1 million to put towards these projects, okay? There are grants out there that we can go after. There's FEMA grants, there's economic development grants, there's more library grants, there's job grants, there's housing grants, all of those issues that we can go after. Now, in this category, I also include donations, and I also include the CRA. So if you're familiar with the West Palm Beach City Hall and the West Palm Beach Library, that would not have happened if the CRA didn't, contribute to that project. CRA paid for the photo center, CRA paid for the parking garages, okay? If you go in with option C, okay, that's in the CRA, okay? The CRA goes away in 2039. That's 18 years from now, okay? 9/11 was 20 years ago. I mean, that just shows you how short of a window that is, okay? Over that period of time, the CRA will probably bring in $180 to $200 million. How is the CRA spending $180 to $200 million in the next 18 years? Well, I got a project for them if they really would like to invest in the city, okay? Impact fees. Okay, impact fees right now, we probably are sitting on about $1.8 million in impact fees. Okay, where impact fees come from is when someone comes to our community and they want to invest and build in our community. Just like going to a poker game, they need to ante up to buy into the game. They need to pay an impact fee to assist the community in paying for what the community is already invested in. So they come, they pay for parks, they pay for police, they pay for fire, they pay for the utility district. Okay? Ratepayers and citizens have been paying this all along. Just because you walk into the door today doesn't mean you get it, scot-free, so you pay an impact fee. So we're sitting on about, $1.8 million in there. As we continue to develop, as we develop the Marina District, as we develop these properties, there will be additional impact fees coming along. Industrial development bonds. Tallahassee has decided that there are some industries that are worth investing in. And they've talked about tourism, healthcare, we talk about the wellness center, housing, transportation. We have talked about the TOD and putting in possibly a train station and getting Tri-Rail in here. What the industrial development bonds are is they've set up these agencies, and Palm Beach County is one of them, that can issue debt to assist people in developing those types of projects. Okay, so whether it's the city that's doing it or it is a private developer that is going to build the TOD, okay, they have access to these types of low cost financing options. Land leases, which is one of my favorites. Very few people probably know, but back in 2014, the city actually entered into a land lease agreement with the CRA for the Marina Uplands. Okay? The lease payments were over $3 million a year, which is probably why that lease agreement is no longer in place. because the CRA realized that they really couldn't afford it. But the land at the marina could have brought in $3 million a year, which can then be used to leverage to go out and borrow money to be able to do other projects. So as we look at the 3 sites that we have, whether we develop, on Broadway, which is option C, but whether you're doing A or B or C, there's the opportunity for land leases on those parcels. Okay, if we can get $3 million on the Marina Uplands 7 years ago, calculations on the north side and south side of Blue Heron would support upwards of $100 million borrowing, okay, just from the land leases on those 2 parcels. So again, if you're looking at C and we have the opportunity to develop both north and south side, there's another $100 million that we could borrow. Development rights. You'll be very surprised to find out what developers are willing to contribute to your community for the right to be able to develop. Okay? We have a developer right now looking at property on Singer Island who in discussions has offered up to build public parking, since we need public parking over by the Ocean Mall. Well, they said, well, shoot, if you're building a fire station, we'll give you $6 million towards the fire station. I mean, we don't care where our money goes. We just want to be able to develop. So as we look at these parcels, it doesn't necessarily have to be on these particular parcels, but you could say, well, shoot, if you come in and you help us develop the property on Broadway, we got some property, a couple blocks up that we'd love to have you develop. And you start to make these deals, and it's not cash that you're giving away. You're just giving somebody the right to be able to develop on your property, which, oh, wait a second, brings in more property taxes and, develops the neighborhood even further. So there's always development rights opportunities out there. In the bottom left, we have the Fpl Revenues. Remember in 2011, they took down the smokestacks, and it took them, 3, 4, maybe even 5 years to put those 3 turbines back in there. What the city wisely did at the time when those properties came back on the tax rolls, since that time we have put $4 million away of this newfound property tax and put it into capital. Take that out, okay? Another 20 years, that's another $80 million of cash that's coming in that can be used to fund these projects, okay? We don't put it into operations. We don't put it into salaries. We don't abate their taxes. They're giving us this money, and we have consistently put away $4 million a year. Now, have we used it? Yes, and that's what we use to do the temporary facilities that Mr. Evans was talking about. But we paid cash for that. We had no interest costs on that, and we've been able to, again, from year to year, get projects done. The one on the bottom and middle, the penny sales tax. Again, remember, a few years ago, a referendum was passed. The sales tax was increased by a penny. A certain amount went to the schools, a certain amount went to the county, and every community got their share. Right now, we're sitting on just over $10 million. We take in our monthly payment from the state. We put it away. We invest it. We have spent none of those dollars. At the end of the day, we are targeted to receive just over $23 million. It's over a 10-year period, and again, we're getting close to halfway to that point. But of course, we're investing it. So by the time we're done, we'll probably have $24 or $25 million. Again, cash that can be used with no strings attached to it, except for the fact that the council has voted that those dollars are designated to go to the City Hall complex. Okay, again, we can't put it in operations. I can't even use those funds to build Station 88. Council said That's set aside for the City Hall complex. And then the last one over there is the fire assessment fee. And what that is that is a fee that is assessed on properties for fire services. We've had a number of studies done. They actually looked at that back in 2011. You know, and I sit here today and said, boy, if they had passed that in 2011, you'd have 4 brand new fire stations at this point. Those dollars can only be used for the fire side of fire operations. They can't be used for the EMS side of operations. So again, you've got to play those, you know, around. It's an assessment that actually goes and tracks on property. And we're looking to bring in about $2.5 million with the per year on the fire assessment fee. And again, that would in essence pay for the 4 fire stations. What I want to do next, though, is go into, go on my Wayback Machine and walk you through this map. Prior to coming to Florida, I worked for the city of Manchester, New Hampshire for 23 years. And I want to show you, there's a lot of similarities between Manchester, New Hampshire and Riviera Beach. Manchester, New Hampshire was at the point of the highways coming out of Massachusetts where all the highways converged, okay, and then headed up to Canada, headed up to the White Mountains. And for a long time, they said Manchester was the best city to drive through. Nobody ever got off in Manchester. Manchester is the largest city north of Boston in New England. So we went into a plan to be able to get people to get off the highway as they were driving through Manchester. Very similar to what Mr. Nottingham and I have talked about Riviera Beach. You need to give people a reason to get off the highway, to drive down Blue Heron. You have thousands of cars every day driving up and down Broadway, and they're not stopping. And we need to give them a reason to stop. So I'm going to take the mic with me. Take the mic with me. Does that still work? Okay. And I'm going to walk over here and show you some of the things and how some of this stuff works. So again, sort of like Riviera Beach, we had the blue dots here. That's the river that split the city in half. Okay, so that's your Lake Worth Lagoon right there. We had the west side and we had the east side. And the stories I hear here about west side, east side, are the identical stories that we had out of Manchester. The red dots that I put on here is the train track, which again ran right up along the river and again caused the same types of problems that the train track has do here in Riviera Beach. But let me walk through some issues. So we start with the blue dot up top. Manchester was an old mill town, okay? They did textiles. They created textiles. And they used the river for their power source. But as you might imagine, and I want to say, I believe it was 1938, all the mills shut down and the city actually filed for bankruptcy and went into receivership. So this city has had to pull itself up by its bootstraps a couple of times. So that blue dot up there was an old rundown mill, broken windows. They used to, again, make textiles there. It was, and some pretty nice sweaters at one point. So our P3 that we did on that project is the city actually purchased the building. We donated the building to a gentleman by the name of Dean Kamen. If anyone knows Dean Kamen, he's the individual that invented the Segway. Very bright MIT graduate. He took that building, he converted it into a sort of like a Hall of Fame for scientists, okay, and created US First. Now, if anybody's familiar with US First, it is now called First because it is no longer US First. because it is in 110 countries. Okay, there are 167,000 students that participate in the program worldwide. This is where they take Legos, they take students, and they take engineers, and they match them all up for competitions. Okay, so we've turned that really into a STEM facility. Okay, and all the city had to do was put out the cash to buy a dilapidated building and donate it. Okay, as we come down this pinkish dot up here, that is a mixed-use hotel retail center. A lot of federal money went into that, so again, a lot of grants went into that. The city built the parking garage. Okay, that was the contribution that the city made at that point. However, then we came along to this property over here, which was a bankrupt retail store and an old grocery store. We did a land swap with that property and this property down here, and we put in an arena up there that was built by the redevelopment agency, supported by meals and rooms tax. Okay, it's just sort of like a sales tax, but we don't say sales tax in New Hampshire. And supported by the operator. The operator guaranteed the city no operating losses on that facility. So the city actually got a $50 million facility, guaranteed no operating losses, and backed by, state revenues. Down here where we did the land swap, the owner of that property that now was the owner of this property then got a developer and put in a medical wellness center type process down at that part of the city. Then the bigger one and the last one that I actually worked on when I was up in Manchester is the baseball stadium here. This area down here, in this area there, was what we called, and I know it's not politically correct anymore, but that was Hobo Jungle. That's where all of our homeless camped. Okay? It was between the tracks and the river, and this is not a walk-in river. That was a bluff there. All overgrown, okay? That's where the homeless camp was. Due to the success of the arena, we now had people who wanted to bring minor league baseball to the city. They had to clean up the area, relocate and help find housing for the individuals that were camping there. They took that land as part of the deal. The city financed it through bonds, okay? But as part of that, they not only had to pay for the stadium, they put $6 million into the high school stadium, okay, that all 4 high schools play football and baseball there, but they put $6 million into that stadium, and when they were putting the artificial turf on that stadium, they then actually came over to one of the high schools and put in artificial turf. So they contributed probably about $10 million to community needs just to get access to that parcel. And then they turned around and they're paying 100% of the construction on the parcel. And then part of what they did is we got a hotel, came in with the stadium, and all of these are now condominiums along the riverbank. Okay? Once we had condominiums along the riverbank, what do you need? The developer built walking trails and built this pedestrian bridge that hooked into the trails on the west side. And the point I guess I'm trying to make on this is they're all done differently. Okay? They all come together differently. And you have to work on the individual components. As Mr. Nottingham said, there's 9 different projects. They all have their own little nuances. Every developer is going to want something a little different, going to need something a little different. You have to be able to pivot. You You have to be able to adapt. But as we saw from the first slide, we have many, many options to be able to come to, and bring some money to the table on these things. So, as we look at these projects, I challenge anybody to drive from here to Fort Lauderdale and find 2 parcels that size that, for anybody to develop. They're not out there. You have developers that are clamoring to come to this community. And again, not only these parcels, Riviera Beach is on the map. They see what's happening here, and they want to be here. So again, what I will tell you is we have developed, as Mr. Nottingham said, we've put together our sources and uses, okay? And it's going to change. So what we've done, anybody who has bought a house and you've seen your HUD statement, right? This is where the money's going, and this is where the money's coming from, right? You go out and you buy a car, it's the same thing. Here's the price of the car. Oh, wait, you get a loyalty discount. Oh, we'll take that off. And you got, and people build these things differently. But at the end of the day, your sources and uses are going to equal. What you may intend on when you start, guarantee, again, it's like that flowing river. It's not going to go where you think it's going to go. But at the end of the day, that water is going to get in the ocean. So the way I built the sources and uses here is, we've taken all the projects. We've got our original cost estimates. As we get better cost estimates, we will change that area to the left in the white and change those. And then we've kind of started to build out, here are our funding sources and where can money be used. So as we work towards it, that red column, that's our funding gap. Okay, so we started out at $200 million with a funding gap of $76 million. Okay, I know that sounds like a lot, but as, again, you start to develop it, you start to work it, you start to, finalize some of these deals, those numbers will certainly come together. And again, that $76 million is without any land leases up there. So again, we've talked about A and B and, and C, and, if we can get $100 million worth of land lease debt financing, that $76 million that's got far gone. So I will stop there and answer any questions that any may have at this time.
Good evening. I have quite a few questions, and it may be a little bit far in advance or ahead of where we are. But the scope of work is really big, and we may not be able to find everything in terms of when we are tearing down things, opening things up, or even developing it from scratch. There are going to be change orders. Change orders generally benefit the developer. That's how they get their extra revenue in. Sometimes our contracts may have some sort of caps established, but at some point in time, for those discoverables, but at some point in time, we may end up exceeding those caps. And I want to know who's going to pay for that. That's one question. Do you want all of the questions at once, or do you want to take them at a time?
No, let me take them one at a time. Okay. I won't remember. I'm going to go back. Okay. Let me just tell you something that we did when we built the arena. Okay. This is a $50 million project. And what we did on that is we did a guaranteed maximum price. Okay, so the developer, when they came in, they said, we will not spend more than $50 million. Then what we did is we said, okay, within that $50 million, you have to have your own contingency that you can draw on. And then the city had a contingency. So what we did is we matched their contingency. And then what we told them is, if you never tap our contingency, we'll split it with you. So they had the incentive to stay within their cuts, their guaranteed max price. If they never used their contingency, that money was theirs. Okay? If they never used our contingency, half of that money was theirs. So they had every incentive to stay within that guaranteed maximum price. So it kind of offset the ability, because you're right, bid low, change order, up to here. But if you do your contracts right, you can take out all of those incentives. And I'm not saying it works for every project in every situation, but that was one of the things that we did to try to, alleviate those things.
And I know that it's going to vary, but it's just posing the question regarding the change order and the contingencies and when that comes about. So I just wanted to make that note.
Yeah.
Okay, my next question is, right now the city of Riviera Beach, we have wonderful credit. And we can pretty much borrow. But when we start taking on these projects, and I don't know what the financing configuration is going to come out, but at some point in time, you're going to borrow. And we can only borrow at so much, and we got to keep our credit rating up. So I just want to know, and it may be too early of that, if we're going to be able to manage our exposure of borrowing too much and we need to tap into additional financing, will we have the availability to do that? That might be too far in advance, but I just want to put that out there.
Well, again, keep in mind, we have, let me say we have 3 different types of borrowing ability. So when we're looking at like the water treatment plant, they're on their own. Okay, it's a fee-based service. Their revenues support their operation. When we borrow for the water utility, they pay that. We have all our non-ad valorem revenues support other borrowing, and our capacity there is probably in the $70 million range to be able to borrow. And then there is always the ability, which is what they do in like West Palm Beach, is go for a public referendum and get the voters to approve an increase in the millage rate. So actually taxes. So when we do our current projects and our current bonding, we use 0 property taxes. So we always have the ability to, again, do a referendum and get the voters to say, we like this idea. We're willing to, raise the millage rate to pay for that. So there's actually a lot of capacity out there, but without a voter referendum, non-utility, we probably have about $70 million of capacity.
Thank you. I'm not an accountant or a financier. I'm just kind of using general common sense. I build websites. I work in SEO. I'm in the digital world, but these are just things that are kind of coming to mind. My next question is, unlike the mistake that we made with the library in the $500,000 grant that was available and we had to give back to the state, which was really, really a huge mistake. My question is, do we have grant writers? And these grants that you spoke about earlier, will we be able to, find out where these grant opportunities are and understand the timetables in which we need to be on the ball to get it submitted, to get that money so we don't find ourselves in another library scenario just giving money back on the table?
Yeah, the city does not have internal grant writers. And I will say some of the departments do try to write some of their own grants, but most of that work is outsourced. And then our lobbyists are really critical to being able to identify those types of funding sources. So we have some resource, but in-house we really don't.
Okay, and that's good, and it's interesting at some point in time, I'm just putting this out to the city manager, that I like to hear from those lobbyists and see what we're paying them to bring us. Okay, my next question is, and I'm going to make this up,
Okay.
There, in the stock world, there is Class A and there's Class B. And I'm going to make this up. There could be penny stocks. So I'm saying that to say when we go out for some bond referendum, when we put that opportunity out there for people to buy into it, I think what the people of Riviera Beach want to say, we may not have much, but we do have something in which we want to participate in that bond at some particular level. Now, I don't know if that's possible. I'm just making that up, Mr. Sherman.
It actually is. It actually is possible. If that's something that we wanted to consider, we certainly could.
All right, so that's good. And I think those are all the questions, and I hope that I got some questions that other people were thinking about out to you.
Thank you. Any additional questions?
Good evening. I don't have a question. I just have a thought that I was thinking of. The council, women and men, quarterly, or I don't know how often, from Waste Management. And they get city, community funds. Now, Mr. Sherman, can that be, if they agree on it, because this money is supposed to be for all the citizens of Riviera Beach, and we need this water plant built. Is it possibility, if they agree with this, can that be put in the capital for the water plant?
The intention of those funds was to meet community needs. If a council person wanted to put their money over there, I don't see any reason why they couldn't.
Mm-hmm.
They have put money in the past into fire station beautifications and park beautifications and those types of things. They tend to use it more for the nonprofits and try to help the community in that regard. The only point I would make with that is the solid waste service collection process that Waste Management currently provides is out to bid at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if that $90,000 that you speak of will survive or be included in the next contract. But yeah, if they wanted to take those funds, they certainly could do that.
Because the funds is supposed to be used, facilitated for the community. And we all are the
Right.
community, and we desperately need this water plant. So if it does survive, I'll bring this to the council at a meeting and suggest that they help everybody in the city by donating. They don't have to donate all the funds that they get, but donate a portion of it to help us with the capital and getting this done. All
Yep.
righty. Thank you
Okay.
very much.
Thank you, Ms. Polk. I don't know, Ms. Bram. I'm not sure.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm going to say something. And this is in reference to how we can proceed. See, I believe in the needle, moving the needle. And this city is long overdue for some upbuilding, some expanding out in what we have. If we do what we always did, the result is nothing. And nothing from nothing leaves nothing. I am one of the ones, along with others, we do like plant seed. I've said it before. It's so often said that the West Side, all of this corridor here is reference to the West Side. If we build where it is feasible to build and we can go ahead on and build, we can do these things. I jotted down every piece of monies in your little puzzle there that you put together. And I'm well familiar with grants because I've worked with them. I know how to write them, and I know how to get that money as well. That was one of my fields as well. You made mention about the FPL money, which is invested into our capital projects. Because see, that money there too can also help build up where we need to. And where we need to build in our infrastructure, as well as helping build up where we need to build that corridor up. Because I'm a firm believer, if you build it, they will come. They will definitely come. Because why? We have the best resources that any state, any country would dare dream of having. We just don't know what to do with it. Because this is what has labored us with stagnation and one set line without any type of vision. And this vision here, whether or not the council board chooses their plan, I look at it as being workable. Because out of some of this money here, bonds, I'm sure you made mention about the bonds. Every city, every municipality, and every country, if it's feasible, work on bonds. You made mention about the library money, that penny tax. You know, we was all into that with that penny tax. You got money there, right there to start that library, because that money would not go wasted anymore. We can move on some of these things here. This is where the rubber will meet the road. Inflation is inflation. You will not tell FPL, oh, don't put $5 or $3 on your electric bill, because they're going to do it anyway.
Right.
You will not tell the oil industry, oh, bring my gas price down to $1.25 or $1.09. It won't work. So we as a collective, a city, municipality, or whatever you want to call us, we can do this increments. We can find grants. It is all types of grants out there. And most of all, residents, this is your day in the sun as well. The CRA will only exist for 18 more years. We have been saying the whole city is the CRA as far as Ms. Graham is concerned, because all of that money there, that CDC board there, them $6 million and stuff, what about the whole city being built up on our tax monies, on our business tax monies? We can do these projects.
We can.
And without a vision and without wisdom, we all will perish. And this is long, long overdue for this gorgeous, beautiful city here. So we want you to move, and you are an expertise as long with other brilliant minds to make this work. And to utilize the monies and stuff that is there for certain projects, I understand that. But we have a good rating, and I'm never going to doubt Riviera Beach for not having that. But now it is time to build, so that if we build, they will come. Because Ms. Graham would like to see this place better than what I have lived in, been in, and have came through. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to say, for the record, this presentation was not the vision of the city manager. This was actually presented by the past council. And you all should know, because because you know they were not happy with it then, and I'm sure now that only about 45 of us have actually had a chance to say something, then it's going to move on. But I just wanted to say that this is presented by another company.
Okay. All right, Ms. Noel, does this go back to you now?
Thank you, Mr. Sherman. And if we can go ahead and give him a round of applause for that presentation. I think he did a really good job really explaining the funding options and basically how it works, because this is a beast of a project and it's going to require a lot of thinking and strategy. And so we're grateful to have Mr. Sherman basically explain that to you as easily as possible. It could be very complicated sometimes explaining finances. But nonetheless, we are going to be closing out. We won't hold on to you too much longer. As you can tell, some folks have already started the rest of their night. But nonetheless, we do want to allow Mr. Dana Nottingham and Mr. Evans just to share a few brief words with you before you move on in terms of next steps.
Okay. Hello? 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 Okay. In terms of my contribution to the next steps, I will be taking the results of the workshop and documenting what we've done, packaging the questions, organizing them around each workshop, and that'll be put into a report that will be given to the city manager and will be shaped by the city manager and his team, so that the board would have this in an organized form to zoom in on those areas. I'm not going to call them issues, but focus areas that require a little more digging before responding back to the community. I want to thank you. I don't know what I'm going to do next Tuesday night because I won't be here, but I want to thank you. I feel the weight, I feel the urgency of this city positioning itself for the next 50 years. With that, the manager.
Again, I can't thank you all enough for being here with us during these workshops. We certainly appreciate the input and feedback, and ultimately moving forward to allow for these projects to jump off the board and be realities here in our community. So again, thank you for being here with us. As we move through subsequent steps of the process, we'll make sure that we keep the lines of communication open, and we look forward to seeing you very soon with some exciting information on how do we continue this momentum as we reimagine Riviera Beach. Thank you and good night.